welcome back, everybody. My name is Jack Paisley, and this is the Sports Casual. Thank you for joining me. We got some sports news from around the different leagues that I think we should talk about. So I'm going to start off with kind of maybe a little more of a Debbie Downer start to this, and I want to talk about the Wembanyama blood clot injury that was released. So this kind of came out of right field, especially to somebody that, or I guess left field is the saying, but just to somebody that doesn't follow the Spurs or the NBA religiously. I'd not really gotten wind that this was a possibility or an issue they were monitoring. But the San Antonio Spurs announced that Wemby's out for the rest of the year, which essentially puts the end to any kind of run they're going to have, even after trading for De'Aaron Fox, most likely. And I think this is a big deal. Outside of just this year, the only time I remember a similar injury in my lifetime that at least jumps to mind to an A-list star in the NBA is Chris Bosh when he was at the kind of the end with the Miami Heat right after the Heatles with LeBron and Dwayne Wade. Um, it kind of put an end to his career if I'm honest. He tried to play through it, but it health wise wasn't worth it since it could potentially turn into a life threatening injury long term. That I think this is about as worst case as you can get for mainstream superstar international athlete that the NBA is trying to essentially make the face of the league, which has also been a big debate going around right now, and whether that's something that you can force, whether that's something a player wants. And they were trying to do it with Wemby. It's basically Wemby or Anthony Edwards up in Minnesota that is kind of the talk of the town of who could take over the mantle for Steph or LeBron or KD once those guys end up retiring here in the next couple years. And then pairing that with George Pavlovich, the head coach for the Spurs, I believe it's a medical issue with him that is keeping him away for most likely the end of this year as well. It's not a great time to be a Spurs fan. Like you were riding high, having this generational superstar player that we just saw in like the Olympics carry a team all the way to the gold medal match against the U.S. and give the U.S. at least a little bit of a run for its money with their super teams. So you're feeling good about that, and then you trade for De'Aaron Fox, who's a solid, like I'd say 1B kind of player, 2A or 1B kind of player, and you're feeling good. And then George or it's Greg, my mistake, Greg Popovich, goes out with an injury or with family and personal health issues, and then Wemby gets this blood clot, and barring just an unreal effort from the rest of this team, you kind of lost your chance at a championship this year, and that sucks from a Spurs fan. And then I'm sure the NBA is not happy about it. That I think this is gonna push the Anthony Edwards face of the league kind of talk, especially because Ant will talk, and he's obviously really good. I don't think they're really threatening for a title this year, but of the young up and coming talent, there's not many guys outside of him that I think can take that face of the league, if you will. At least that's in the league right now. The only other ones that kind of had all the heat coming behind him was Zion Williamson and then John Morant. And obviously, they've had their off the field issues with either the gun stuff for Ja or primarily weight related with Zion, as well as just playing in New Orleans. Like I think he just had the fastest or top three fastest to a certain amount of points, and I that kind of caught me by surprise because the national narrative around him is just he's just this fat guy that's always injured, and apparently he's been playing and playing really good, and it's just no one sees it because that team is comparatively a small market team, and they haven't really done anything in the playoffs or competing wise that you just don't see him. So I think really the only realistic face of the league outside of like a Luka Doncic for one of an American ground stars is Anthony Edwards, especially with the Wemby injury. And then I'll be up front. I'm not the most diehard Laker or not Lakers NBA fan growing up. It just wasn't my sport, but I will say this big Lakers Mavs trade for Luka Doncic has gotten me more and more into basketball. It's just fun seeing these generational historic players playing together. I personally wasn't a big fan like when Kevin Durant went to the Warriors a couple years ago. I just thought that seemed unfair. This one doesn't seem unfair to me, and it's really fun to watch that team kind of come together around Luca, LeBron, and then JJ Redick, which is all just kind of a match made in a weird, I'll say a weird heaven that they've played really well, and they're fun to watch. It's wild seeing that LeBron James is still probably one of the top three players in the world in year. I think he's in 20 or 21 at this point. That the only guys that I think realistically are in that conversation with him are Jokic and Giannis, and some nights LeBron will outplay all of them, which is just wild to see from a 40-year-old man that's been doing this since he was 18. That it's been really fun seeing this trade for Luca kind of give new life to this organization, even though it complicated life. Like I just watched the Lakers play the Mavs, and just seeing how much they were willing to lay it out on the line for Luka. Knew all the like blindsided stuff behind it. You knew all the emotions behind it. And it felt like a big time game, and I think you saw LeBron take over to try to signal to Luca like we know this is important to you. We're gonna do everything we can to make this a win and a big deal for you. And I think it's a cool environment to see, and it's wild to see LeBron James is possibly still the best player in the world at this far in. The only other guy that's really I can think of three guys that have done this in all sport, or four if you count women, and that was Serena Williams was competitive until the very end. When she had a kid, it kind of started to fall off a little bit, but she was still super competitive. Tiger Woods. The biggest thing with him was just he had all those injuries and surgeries, car accidents. I think if he never gotten that last one, I think he would have been in that same position to be in contention every week. And once that was done, then he was done. And then Tom Brady. Tom Brady's the only other one that really has done what LeBron is doing. And the difference between all of them is LeBron is doing a sport where explosive movement and physical attributes are a major part. Tom never did that because he was a quarterback that did not run. Serena, you can give that to, but again, she kind of fell off a little bit at the end, and I don't think she quite made it to that 40 mark. I might be off on that, but um, yeah, we haven't really seen that big decline from him. And then Tiger, that sport doesn't require a bunch of extended, large, explosive movement. It's its own style of explosive movement, but in general, it's just a different style of athleticism. And you're seeing the drop off with him now is just the wear and tear of playing and walking for 4 hours. It's not the explosive part. So it's just wild to see from LeBron. And then big news from the NFL is that came out that Deebo Samuel is going to be traded to the Washington Commanders. And I just want to say I was right. I told you guys so. I called this at I think right after the Commanders got eliminated from the playoffs. They are going to follow the Houston Texans blueprint in this offseason in terms of surrounding uh, their young quarterback with weapons and O linemen. And they did like Texans last year went and traded for Stephon Diggs. First thing that the Commanders do this year is trade for Deebo Samuel. I personally think this is a better deal for the 49ers than the Commanders. I think Deebo will help them and bring them kind of that winning mentality. But I also think that the style of play that Deebo is known for at this point, after all of his injuries and his age, I don't see him making it through a full season. So if you're a Commanders fan, what you're hoping for Jaden Daniels' sake and your team is that you can time his uses right. Um, and that's basically postseason. Big games and postseason is what I want to save Deebo Samuel's health for, essentially, because he's been banged up every single year within recent memory. Basically, like he's always battling either shoulder. I think he had a hamstring, hip. Like just the style of play that guy plays is so physical that he's just getting beat up. And so I'm curious to see how they utilize him because he's not really a true like wide receiver. He's kind of that gadget player that kind of leans towards more of a wide receiver. So I'm curious to see how they use him. But I think that this is a leadership role for basically that organization. Like Debo's been in a winning organization since he got drafted in 2019. Like his rookie year he went to the Super Bowl. So he knows what it's like to be in a winning organization, and Washington's still trying to build that winning culture even though they had that crazy first year with Jaden. That I think they're doubling down, and I think they're going to keep following that Texans model, which I just want to say I called it. So, you're welcome. I can see the future. And then the last thing I want to talk about might be a little bit little niche, but this is going to be golf related, and it's Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy's TGL League. So we're coming into the playoffs now, which some of you guys probably not don't even know about, but just to give you kind of a quick highlight, it is a team versus team indoor golf league. Basically, kind of think like Top Golf, only with more realistic golf inside. That is in like a stadium arena. So you have fans similar to like the Waste Management. And the first time I watched this, I wasn't sold because you saw. I think my biggest thing was that you really got to work out the kind of the greens. Like the greens were really weird. The bunkers are still kind of funky. Um, and then you got like the biggest thing for that one is you kind of need personalities in those. So you saw guys like Billy Horschel or Justin Thomas kind of elevate themselves because not only are they willing to go, are they really good at the sport, obviously, but they'll talk shit. Like they're just entertaining golfers. And I think you saw them draw some inspiration from like the YouTube golf that's going around right now with like Grant Bill or either Bryson DeChambeau or Billy Horschel and all that stuff. And it just made me think like if I could put any one player in TGL right now, would be Phil Mickelson. And it's not because of his golfing ability or the whole live versus PGA or any of that stuff. Phil is one of those few guys, or John Rahm or Brooks Koepka, I think would benefit in there too, or maybe Ian Poulter is on the edge, but those are guys that talk shit and will go for wild shots. Like Phil is known for making like side bets on the tee, like talking you through the shot, and then like playing mind games with his opponents. Like he is a showman on the golf course. Bryson less so, but he's just such a weird player and really good that I'm sure he would be great on this too, especially on the driving side. But watching Phil Mickelson on there talking shit to like Rory McIlroy, or you know, I mean Tiger would be fun. It's that would be, I think, the best thing that TGL could do. I don't think they'll do it because they're kind of like hovering over the PGA Tour golf line, not live, and they're not really cross contaminating, which makes sense since all these guys they're playing are on the PGA Tour. But I think if you put together a live golf like team, I think you could have some of the most entertaining people in golf, and it would be one of the most entertaining events if you're a golf fan. And then I also think this is going to be the future of kind of the whole Top Golf movement. Like the Top Golf thing is still huge, obviously similar to like bowling, but anybody that's like an avid golfer kind of it wears off. It's so expensive that I a lot of my friends that are avid golfers like me just don't go that often unless they're asked. because for less money, I can go hit significantly more balls at a or like a driving range. Like it's so expensive that most of them go there. But seeing how this whole augmented screen for the most part works really well into the whole green side component, it would not shock me if that's the next big thing in like upper price golfing because golf has gotten so expensive. That I think that and golf courses are so packed because everybody picked it up over COVID and they found out how great of a game it is. That I think that could be the next future is that you're gonna have these weird like TGL style augmented reality golf courses because you don't need as much space to build it. I don't think it'll ever fully encapsulate real golf because there is the outside piece that I think is the biggest selling point, especially to amateurs. Um, but I do think this is going to be the next kind of golf related business that's going to start to grow. And I'll be curious to see how that works because there's always the legal aspects of these things where, these guys own the intellectual property behind, these augmented greens and stuff like that. So I'm curious to see how that goes, but I am a huge TGL fan. I was tentative at the beginning, and the more I watched, the more I was like, okay, this is great because I love the team versus team, like the one on one, all that stuff. I think it is the best part of amateur golf and competitive. Like whenever, even if you're watching like a Masters, there's typically 2 to 3 people at the end of the day that are realistically in it, and it is essentially 1v1 because usually they're in the same group. I think that is where you see like you'll have these random guys come back from way back, but for the most part, you're watching two guys battle back and forth on the last day, which is usually the day that's watched the most. So those are my thoughts on the Wemby and LeBron, and then obviously the big Deebo trade for the Commanders, and then my little short golfing rant at the end. So my name is Jack Paisley. Thank you for watching the Sports Casual. We'll see you again soon.